can I just be an observer here?
Yes, you can.
Okay, okay. I'll just be an observer. I'll listen.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And we are recording.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Julia.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Makana.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Makana. How are you?
I'm good.
Glad to have you back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
You have a lot more hair.
Pandemic.
I know it's 5:30, but it looks like we don't quite have quorum yet.
No, ma'am.
Okay. I will wait. Tell me when. And I know we are expecting one absence, Commissioner Molig. Is there anybody else that indicated they wouldn't be here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
How are you, Shayna, Dolores?
Doing well, doing well. How about you?
Hanging in.
Oh,
Keep busy.
That's good.
I'm doing okay.
Open enrollment started for Medicare, so that's going to keep me busy for a while.
Yes. Oh, Gerald, did you see that note from Commissioner Rizzo?
The note regarding which?
Oh, she said she can see us, but we can't see her.
Okay. Let me find her. And
yeah, I joined as a panelist. It gave me something to join as a panelist.
Okay, and I promoted you to panelist, but I don't see Commissioner Rizzo.
She's there.
I see Duncan. Okay, let me go back in again.
Okay, and Commissioner Gilly.
Okay, allow to talk. FH, I don't know who that is. All right, promote to panelist. Okay, allow to talk. No.
Oh, now for now is Godwin.
Allow to talk. Promote to panelist. Okay. Allow to talk and promote to panelist. So I promoted everyone to panelists. So
right, they just have to turn on their cameras.
Right.
Okay. And I know that we have a couple speakers joining. I believe I know Dulce Garcia from Border Angels is joining, but she knows she's speaking at 6:15, so she might join a little bit later. If you could just keep an eye for her.
I will.
Okay.
And do we have quorum now with all these participants?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Wonderful. Then I will go ahead and get started. I would like to call this meeting to order and would like to begin tonight with a land acknowledgement in recognition of and respect for Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of the land that we now call the city of San Diego. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the San Diego community and inhabitants of Ma'at Tapai, Kumeyaay territory, we acknowledge this legacy. We promote this balance and harmony and find inspiration from this land, the land of the Kumeyaay. And with that, I'm going to move into our roll call. Commissioner Beltran?
Present.
Commissioner Brown?
She's here.
Okay. Commissioner Duncan?
He's here.
Okay. Commissioner Detsky-Weil?
Here.
Commissioner Gillies?
Here.
Commissioner Higa?
I'm here.
Commissioner Mode? Commissioner Molig has an excused absence. Commissioner Legaspi, we heard, is joining us just as an observer. Commissioner Purcell. Commissioner Murray Ramirez.
He's here.
Commissioner Razi Jafari.
Present.
Commissioner Rizzo.
I'm here.
And Commissioner.
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to ask.
I'm here also. Just
who was that?
Canizales, Dolores.
Oh, my apologies. And Commissioner Canizales is here as well. Thank you. I'd like to ask my colleagues on the commission to please keep your video on throughout the meeting to help remain as accessible as possible to our audience. I ask the same of the participating commission staff. Thank you. And I'd like to remind my fellow commissioners that you have a copy of our agenda and meeting minutes and other background materials on our commission website and in our calendar appointment as well. Before we move on with our meeting, I'd like to recognize staff present. Joining us tonight are our interim executive director, Gerald Brown, who also serves as executive director of the Citizens Advisory Board on Police and Community Relations. And we're also joined by McConna Rowan from the Council President's Office, who will present on a proposed inclusive language policy. Now, I'd like to have Gerald run down some of the guidelines for today's meeting. Gerald?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and commissioners. Thank you so much for calling in today. If you are calling in by phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. When you are calling up on we will call upon the last 4 digits of your phone number. Press number 6 to unmute yourself to speak. The chair will recognize you and call on you during personal comment. So let's play.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is non-agenda public comment. The public was invited to submit public comment on agenda and non-agenda items via web form accessible through the agenda and the commission's website. Members of the public may also join this meeting as webinar attendees. If members of the public have submitted comments in writing via the web form, staff will read aloud public comments submitted per city public comment protocol. Gerald, do we have any non-agenda public comment?
No, ma'am, we have no non-agenda public comment.
Thank you. And now moving on to our next item, I was asked to do just a quick refresher on the meeting norms and process that I shared last month. And so I'm going to ask Gerald to share his screen, but particularly because we had a few commissioners who weren't with us last month, I did want to talk through that. I'm not sure, is that coming up for you, Gerald?
It is not coming up for me. We don't have the document is not coming up, ma'am. So
okay, but I'll just quickly talk through some of those key points for folks who weren't with us last month. So we do ask that any future agenda items that are requested by commissioners are shared with me, with our vice chair and interim executive director at least 2 weeks before each meeting, and that you notify us as soon as you're aware of an upcoming absence. We also ask that everyone arrive at the meeting by the posted start time, turn on your video to promote transparency and accessibility to the public. And as a reminder, when you'd like to speak, just type speak in the chat, and please limit comments in the chat to ensure full transparency to the public. Again, if you're calling in by phone, use *9 to request to speak and *6 to unmute. And anybody who is joining us by phone, I'll make sure to offer any commissioners who are on the phone an opportunity to speak at the end of discussion for each agenda item, just to make sure every voice is heard, because I know it can be tricky going between folks on video and others who are on the phone. And also just want to review a couple quick norms. So we ask that everyone be present and engaged, that everyone assume good intentions and take responsibility for their impact, that we take an inquiry stance, meaning let's be curious and not certain, that you ground statements in evidence, stay focused on purpose, and respect each other's time. And I think we all do a very good job of these things, but it's always great to have a little refresher. And now I'll move on to our next item, which is approval of our minutes from September. Is there any public comment on this item, Gerald?
There is no public comment on this item, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to approve our September minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve. This is Faye Detsky-Weil.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor? I guess I will go through each of your names, starting with Vice Chair Canizales.
Yes.
Commissioner Beltran. That's a yes. Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Duncan.
You're on mute, Commissioner Duncan.
Commissioner Duncan, we can't hear you.
Thumbs up.
That's a yes. Okay. Commissioner Detsky-Weil.
Yes.
Commissioner Gillies.
Yes.
Commissioner Higa.
Yes.
Commissioner Mode. Commissioner Purcell. Commissioner Murray Ramirez. Commissioner Razi Jafari.
Yes.
Commissioner Rizzo.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas. Is that a yes? Did Commissioner Thomas respond?
Yes, he said yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, the motion carries. And is everybody able to speak, Gerald? Are there any issues? Okay.
No, sorry. That was just me. I couldn't find my little toolbar.
No problem. No problem. I just want to make sure that everybody is able to speak when they need to. Glad you are there. All right, we will move right along to our next item, which is inclusive language policy. We're going to hear from Makana Rowan from Council President Campbell's office. And before I turn it over to him, just want to remind everybody that we've been talking about related items for quite some time, particularly around pronouns. And I know this is something that Commissioner Molig is particularly interested in and has been advocating for quite some time. And so even though she is not here, I know she's very happy to see this item here tonight. But with that, I'll turn it over to you, Makana.
Yes, my apologies. My colleague, Justine Murray, has started work on this with my predecessor, Josh Coyne, in my office. And for those of you, hello, good to see everybody again. I was in this meeting in my previous capacity as the liaison for this group in Mayor Faulkner's office. So if you're wondering why my name looks familiar, that's why I'm back. I'm now the Director of Policy at Council President Campbell's office, but the Director of Policy in Council Member Campillo's office, her name is Justine Murray. So Gerald, if you'll keep an eye out for her, she's texting me right now. She's running a teensy bit late, but she's logging on. She asked that I wait for her if possible. I can start the process. I don't want to, I know your agenda is timed. So
I'm looking at items that we could ahead of you.
Yeah, can we leapfrog one maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So I don't know if our presenter from Border Angels is here. If not, we can go on to Trans Day of Remembrance. Gerald, do we have Dulce Garcia?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask Commissioner Thomas, are you prepared to speak about Trans Day of Remembrance if we move on to that item?
Yes, absolutely.
Very good, take it away.
Okay, so the first thing is that we are in the planning stages of this. So I reached out to Commissioner Legaspi, who is interested in partnering with me on organizing a group activity where this city commission, the HRC City Commission, could meet up with the county commission to put out a joint statement and show of support, possibly at the Hillcrest flag for a news event or something like that. That way we could really assert that this is where we want to move with this region, that this is a safe place for our transgendered brothers and sisters here in San Diego. After talking with Julia, I reached out to Tracy, who is a longtime trans advocate in the community. And she turned me on to Naya, who's part of the Transgendered Project at the center. And so Naya and I started talking today also about where this will go. So I'm open to ideas and suggestions from my fellow commissioners on this. And I think we should ask Julia and Nicole to take this back to the county and ask them if they have any interest in, number one, doing this with us, but also putting together a joint statement. Can the mayor and our board of supervisors do a proclamation that we could then forward at that time? You know, there's different things that we could do that way, so.
Thank you. And is there what is the timing on this?
November 20th is the Trans Day of Remembrance. Maybe we want to do this, you know, a few days in advance of that so people can prepare and, you know, join one of the celebrations that are happening. I was just in a meeting along with Julia with the with Todd and the LGBTQ advisory board that he has.
Yes.
And somebody else is working on a Trans Day of Remembrance. So we're going to interface tomorrow and talk about this more. So it'd be just good to kind of get people's ideas here, other commissioners, on how we would move forward with this. Anything you think this commission could do to really make a good impact. I think it's a great time for us to step forward.
Thank you. And I'll open it up to other commissioners. I do want to add, this isn't an action item, so we couldn't affirm, you know, sending a statement or something like that. But I think this is a fantastic idea and something that we absolutely should, as a commission, be part of. And we'll really follow your lead, Commissioner Thomas, and then also Commissioner Legaspi and Murray Ramirez around how we can support, be involved, hopefully in a collaborative effort with the county. But I'll open it up to any commissioners that would like to share ideas and feedback. And I don't see any, but am I missing anybody?
No, ma'am. I don't see any either.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas, I think this is fantastic. So please keep us in the loop about, you know, what is decided. It sounds like you're already talking to the mayor and the mayor's office, and that hopefully the ball is already rolling. I see Commissioner Gillies.
Yeah, I just wanted to affirm how important I think this is based upon hate crimes. And I don't have brilliant ideas today on how to make it work, but we want to be on board. I think this is so important for this commission.
Fantastic. And I think, that is a unique perspective that we bring around hate crimes, because we have been focused on that and talking about it for quite some time. And I know I would want to highlight that Commissioner Gillies is also on the county commission as well.
Oh, you are, right?
Yes.
That'd be great. So I think maybe next steps is that next week we'll put together sort of an outline of what will happen. I'll send it to Reverend Brown, and then he can send it out to you, and you send it out to everybody else. I'm not sure how that process works.
Yeah, we can send it to everybody and BCC everybody so that we're in compliance with the Brown Act, and make sure that everybody is in the loop. And if there's any help, support, guidance you need, everybody can respond individually to you and not to the whole group. But I think it looks like we are in strong support here, and we are all behind you. So let us know how we can be involved.
Okay, I think that's great. We're looking forward to this. Awesome. And can I add one other thing? Because in my conversation with Reverend Brown this week, he asked about my pronouns, and a lot of people here are wondering what I prefer, what makes me feel more comfortable. For me, I just would like to say, I come from a Hawaiian background. We only have one sort of pronoun. There's male, there's female, and then there's mahu. And I've always felt that way. So for me to choose a he or a she or a they or a them or a thou or a thee is not really in my culture. So it's more important that you express yourself to me, and I'm happy with our relationship, that however it is. If you prefer to call me she, I'm happy with that. If you prefer to call me he, I'm happy with that. I'm definitely not a they.
Thank you. And I really appreciate you sharing that with everybody. Thank you. And we will, I guess, any other comments on this item before we sort of move back up the agenda?
Madam Chair, if I can just say so.
Yeah.
I too want to be respectful of everyone and respect everyone's pronouns. And, the example has to start here with us. And so that's why I did not know Commissioner Tootie's or Commissioner Thomas, his pronouns. And so I didn't want to be out of order, because we want to make sure that we give each other the respect that's due, and required. So again, it starts with us here. So.
And I totally appreciated that when you reached out to me, and I appreciate those conversations that we had. Yesterday's conversation was awesome. We talked about grace and how we need to be forgiving of others in those moments where there is unclarity, and we don't know, but we care enough about each other to want to do the right thing.
Oh, well, I love that, and the sentiment coming from both of you, and thank you for leading by example. And I would say, if you don't have your pronouns on the screen now, I would encourage you to put them next to your name, so that we all know how to address each other and how you identify. So if you're able to figure out the technology to do that, I encourage you to do so. And with that, we will, I'm gonna see if we can go back to our inclusive language item. Do we have Justine with us?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. We're way ahead of schedule, which never happens. But I will turn it over. Do you want to take the lead, or Makana?
Yeah, I can take it, and I'm going to share my screen. Even though we've been in a pandemic for over a year, I'm still not great with technology, so please let me know if you can see it or not.
Yes.
Okay, let me do this. Okay, so everyone can see it and everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you all taking me out of order. I know you're going quickly, and our Economic Development Committee that my boss chairs was actually going long, which is rare. So a little short on time today, but thank you again for taking us out of order. Our presentation will probably take around 10 minutes, and Makana and I will be happy to answer any questions or take any feedback after that. So again, good evening, commissioners. First, I want to thank you for volunteering your time to serve on this commission as a volunteer and really work to make our city better. I know my boss appreciates it. I know that Council President Campbell appreciates it, and all of the council members do as well. My name is Justine Murray. I use the pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm the Director of Policy for Councilmember Raul Campillo. We are here tonight to present proposed amendments to Chapter 1, Article 1, Division 2 of the San Diego Municipal Code and Council Policies 000-01, 07, and 21 to promote inclusive language. As I mentioned before, joining me today to co-present is Makana Rowan, Director of Policy for Council President Campbell. Before we do begin our presentation officially, I'd like to acknowledge the following groups for their support in a working group as we work to create the proposed policy amendments. That's San Diego LGBT Pride, San Diego LGBT Community Center, the UC Triton Lobby Corps, and the City of San Diego's LGBTQ+ Employee Resource Group, which Makana and I are both proud members of. So I will now turn it over to Makana to officially begin our presentation.
Thanks, Justine. Yep. So Makana Rowan, he, him are my pronouns. And so a bit of background on this. We feel that this request aligns with the mission of the City of San Diego's government, which is to represent, support, and serve all residents throughout the city. You know, that's a moving goalpost in a good way. So while the city acts on behalf of all of the San Diego residents, the current municipal code and some of the council policies don't always reflect the diversity of our people, especially as our understanding grows. Our requested action is to ensure that all feel welcome to participate in government, but are also adequately represented in our official government documents and laws. So you can see on the screen there's an actual definition for inclusive language, which is language that avoids the use of certain expressions or words that might be considered to exclude particular groups of people, especially gender-specific words. So some of the examples that we found in this work that weren't inclusive in city document, or excuse me, examples of inclusive language in city documents could be the use of non-gendered specific pronouns, for example, using they or their when he or she isn't actually necessary. So additionally, use of words like council member instead of councilman or councilwoman, humankind instead of mankind. So these are examples that we're looking at that this will put into place. So, and please note that this requested action is for all future amendments. It was to get this done, we couldn't go retroactive, even though of course that would be ideal. So this is going to be in perpetuity for future amendments. So if you'd go to the next slide. In addition to the background that I just provided, further discussion on this action is important to understand the full context. In the last few years, as many of you are familiar with, I know, we've seen anti-trans and anti-non-binary discrimination rise across our country for, increasing every year, it seems. In February of 2021, 8 anti-trans and anti-non-binary bills were brought forward across 7 different states. These bills included anti-transgender medical ban bills, anti-transgender sports ban bills, an anti-transgender bathroom bill, anti-transgender birth certificate bill, and an anti-transgender religious refusal bill. So we really see this as doing our part to rectify, no change is too small when it comes to making the world better for folks, especially those who are marginalized. So as of 2019, 11 states, in addition to Washington, D.C., enacted policies that allowed the issuance of third gender IDs. So, these changes are happening. California began offering non-binary birth certificates since the start of 2018, introduced gender neutral driver's licenses in 2019. The United States Capitol introduced an X-gender option on driver's license and identification cards, which started in 2017. On June 30th, 2021, the Biden administration announced passport reforms that would include the gender X mark and removed anti-trans and anti-non-binary barriers, like eliminating medical requirements for a person to change the gender on their passport and consular form. So The United House of Representatives approved the rules package for the 117th Congress in January of 2021, which introduced utilizing non-binary or non-gendered language in official congressional documents. So we just see this as a part of being a part of positive change. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Justine to complete our presentation.
Thank you, Makana. So the Council of the City of San Diego has historically amended its policies and codes to reflect societal changes and the needs of the people it serves and our diverse population. For example, the council approved ordinance number 17956 in 1993, which adds general rules of interpretation of ordinances to Chapter 1, Article 1, Division 2 of the Municipal Code. Specifically, this ordinance required that each gender in any ordinance must include the other gender to promote inclusivity and address the lack of representation for those who identify as female at the time in 1993. It's time for this council to move forward with a similar amendment to promote inclusivity of all San Diegans, including our non-binary and transgender residents. Finally, as you can see on this screen, cities such as Boston, Portland, Berkeley, and Oakland have passed similar resolutions calling for gender-neutral language on city documents. So earlier this year, on July 14th this summer, the Rules Committee took the following action. This motion was made by Councilmember Campillo. It was to direct the City Attorney's Office to work with the offices of Council District 2 and 7 to draft amendments to current council policies and the municipal code to require future amendments to council policies, the municipal code, and city charter use non-binary and non-gendered language to describe a person or a group of people and to be brought back to the full council for approval. Now that is a mouthful, but the city attorney likes us to be super specific in our motion. So basically, what we proposed back in July was that the Rules Committee gave our offices the direction to work together to find where we could promote inclusive language across our municipal code, our council policy, and our city charter, which are the three overarching, kind of legislative policy bodies that direct the city in all of its business. Since the committee meeting, I will note this passed unanimously, which was a great moment for us and for what we're trying to do. Since the committee meeting, our two offices have worked diligently with the city attorney's office to craft these proposed amendments, and we are proud and excited to say we have finalized 3 proposed amendments to council policies and 1 amendment to the municipal code, which will be brought to council on November 1st for final approval. So on November 1st, this is kind of the nitty-gritty policy wonk language, but we will be asking the city council to approve 2 sub-items, one to amend the municipal code and the other to amend 3 council policies, as I just mentioned. Both of these sub-items will add the following language and will amend current documents. So the following language, unless otherwise required by law, shall be drafted. So insert all policy statements or all proposals to amend the city charter shall be drafted using gender neutral pronouns or reusing nouns to avoid the use of gendered or binary pronouns when referring to a person or group of people. Specifically, the municipal code will be amending Chapter 1, Article 1, Division 2, which basically outlines how we construct, define, and create our ordinances in the city. This amendment will basically require that all future ordinances and changes to the municipal code must utilize inclusive language. Council Policy 000-01 is our council policy manual, and that establishes procedures for the preparation, distribution, and maintenance for council policies and the council manual itself. So this amendment will require all future additions to these policies and the manual have to be drafted using inclusive language, as you see on this screen. Council Policy 000-07, general regulatory legislation provides uniformity in the scope of regulatory ordinances. So again, I kind of sound like a broken record, but it's important to go through all the changes. This is going to cover inclusive language in our general regulatory ordinances. And the last council policy we will be amending is Council Policy 000-21, the submission of ballot proposals. And this will specifically require that any ballot proposals that come forward that will amend the city charter must be drafted by this language. So must be drafted using inclusive policies and non-gendered language when referring to a person or a group of people. So to put it simply, without using all of that funky language, we will be proposing that moving forward, this city, when it comes to amending our municipal code, adding anything to our municipal code, Our council policies, which are like resolutions, or our city charter, has to be done in a non-gendered way. And to reiterate what Makana said earlier, it is so important that every single person feels represented in their city. We want to ensure that if any citizen wants to look up a proposed resolution or ordinance or a ballot measure, look up the city charter, that they feel they're represented in the city that's supposed to represent them. So that pretty much concludes our presentation. I know Makana and I, we're not supposed to be biased in the policies we work on, but we are very excited about this one. And we welcome any questions you all have, any feedback, any suggestions. And there's our contact information too on the screen if you want to get in touch.
And I'll just tack on one quick thing. You know, Justine is a friend and an incredible ally to the LGBTQ plus community. I'll just shine her crown with that. But this is the first of one important step that we'd like to make together, you know, through our offices. So if there's any ideas that you have in the future, we welcome those ideas. Please reach out to us. And then one other note that the city attorney wisely pointed out to us is that there are certain areas that it is necessary to reference gender. For example, specific funding that is allocated to like BIPOC or woman owned things. So that will be in there. That was an important piece that remained there. But anywhere else, unless it's absolutely necessary to refer to it, will be like how we discussed. So Commissioner, oh, I see some hands. I'm gonna let Gerald do your thing.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you both for all of your hard work on this and for sharing it with us, because it is something that has been important to us for quite some time. I'm looking to see, is there anybody requesting to speak? I do see thank yous in the chat. I see Commissioner Higa has a question. Commissioner Higa?
And Commissioner Gilly.
Oh, and then thank you.
I was just wondering if this is approved, will that require companies that's dealing with the city to follow the same rules when addressing anything to the council?
So yes and no, and that's not a great answer, right? That's a pretty blurry answer. If it relates to any legislation, say for example, an ordinance comes forward that or a resolution comes forward that approves a contract with a company working for the city of San Diego, and somewhere in that contract, as a part of the ordinance, the company proposes using he or she to define a person or a group of people, that would be changed. Now, when it comes to how they address the council in meeting format, you know, when addressing like council member instead of councilman or councilwoman, that we have yet to address. But like Makana said, this is really the first step for us as a legislative body to say, hey, this is important, and this will set the groundwork for us to basically open up what I think is a great Pandora's box of opportunities to, you know, address issues like that. And that's a great point. And I'm sure Makana and I will take that feedback and think about how we can implement those additional changes too.
Thank you. And I know we have Commissioner Rizzo and then Commissioner Gillies. Commissioner Rizzo?
Thank you. And Justine and Makana, thank you for an excellent program. Learned a lot, and I'm excited to see you all push it forward as well. So you have my support for sure. And one thing that I wanted you to know just from a feedback standpoint is, so I'm an attorney, and this has been coming up in the legal sense as well in terms of gender neutral terms in laws and how perhaps a lot of the laws need to be looked at in terms of protected class and categories and you know, all of that. And so what I was glad to see was that you're not only looking at policies, but that the municipal code was included as well. And sorry, my kids are running in right now, so you might hear some stuff, but we're doing our best here. I think that, as Justine, you said, sort of, you know, setting the tone and the stage for work to be done. I think the municipal code as being ordinances for the city is important, and I think laws will likely to be will follow. So I just wanted to give you kudos on that, because there has been a lot of legal discussion as well in terms of, you know, things like pregnancies and other things in terms of looking at gender neutral terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillies?
Thank you. Also, I appreciate the presentation, and this may be random and unrelated. I'm not sure how things work so well at the city, but does this trickle down, or could it work also around when the city puts out job descriptions, opportunities? I feel that's really important to be inclusive when we're posting things like that from the city if we want to be welcoming to all. And I just wonder if that's part of this or another piece.
Yeah, and Makana, I can go if you.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so no, because it's just, and I'd say just, but it's not just, that's not the right word, right? We're pretty much overhauling the entire way that we write legislation and form our city charter. But it is something that I know we're interested in, and Makana and I have talked about. I will not use this person's name, but that's something that it's really important for us as the City Council, and I hope you all as the Human Relations Commission, to support the city's LGBTQ+ and Alliance group. I had no idea until I met someone in that group how much of a barrier it can be when you are onboarding to the city and you can't have the name that you use and the gender on your ID or when you're fingerprinted, and it is heartbreaking. And so that is something that I know Makana and I have discussed about, once we get this first step in the door, show, there is widespread support for this. And we will continue to promote inclusive policies. I know that that's something that we would definitely like to address. So, but I really appreciate you bringing that up. It's very important.
Thank you. And is there anyone else, any other commissioners waiting to speak? I don't see any.
Commissioner Thomas?
Oh, Commissioner Thomas, Harold.
So thank you. I think in that question that Commissioner Gillies just asked, I think Kim Desmond, right, who is the equity person for the mayor's office, she is handling a lot of that. That's what was relayed in that meeting that Julia and I just got out of. And so I think, at some point, if we have further questions about that, she might be a good resource also to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. She is very much on our list. We're going to take it on a little tour. Y'all are our first stop. So, I mean, that kind of, unless anybody else has questions, brings us to a natural progression of what we'd like to lean on y'all for. So I think we're just an info item, right? But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. One final thing, which is just looking for clarity. So is this just specific to pronouns? Because obviously there are many other gendered terms that aren't necessarily pronouns describing people. Would that apply to those cases as well?
It would, right? Well, go ahead, Justine. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I believe it would. Our intention when we were working with the city attorney, which I have to give City Attorney Heather Ferbert a great shout out, explained our intentionality with this, that we want to make sure things are drafted in an inclusive way. So the specific language, really being that, or reusing nouns to avoid the use of gendered wording. I think it does encompass that. There's a legal case to be made. But we are more than happy if after passing this, say a year goes by and there is a ordinance that comes forward and says, mankind instead of humankind, and we get pushback that, oh, well, this ordinance or these amendments we passed actually don't encompass that, then you'll probably see us back in a year asking for support for some more legislation.
And Justine alluded to the point earlier, but it really is, it's a bigger thing than it may seem like on its surface when you just, look at a list of 2 or 3 things that are changing, but it really is going to give us a precedent to point to, like Justine said, of, look, this thing we believe it's going to be unanimous at council, but we still want to rally all the support so that next time we come with maybe something even more in depth or wider, whatever you want to call it, we can point at this and it will be an easier sell.
Thank you. And I think, you know, as with everything, right, it's changing the policy, but changing our practice sometimes is just as hard, right? And the education and all the work that has to happen is really, you know, where a lot of this work is. So really appreciate all of your efforts. But I know you were sort of wrapping up and wanted to share maybe a next step for us, or whatever we can do, recognizing this is an info item.
Yeah, so I mean, and forgive me if this isn't procedurally correct, but I would love to lean on you for some kind of formal support, even if it's a statement or calling into that meeting. I defer to you on how those things are accomplished, but we are on the docket for November 1st.
It'll be a Monday.
So it's soon. It's soon, yeah.
Very good. Can you send us that information so that we have it?
Yes.
And I think, you know, even though it's not an action item, I know I can, in my role as chair, you know, vocalize my support. Is it more helpful to have a statement, something in writing, or what's preferable?
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, if that's possible.
Okay, yeah, so if you send the information over, we can't send something on behalf of the entire commission. Certainly I can, and I think any other commissioner who would like to voice their support, I encourage them to do so.
And if you don't mind, Chair, I just dropped Makana and my email in the chat. I know it was at the end of our presentation, but I stopped sharing because I would know we had some hand raised and I wanted to have more of a discussion than just looking at our PowerPoint slides. So if anyone has any, you know, questions or has interest in this or any other, you know, inclusive policy ideas, I know we've heard a lot of great feedback about things we might be able to and hopefully will pursue in the future. Please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate you presenting to us and excited about your work.
And my apologies for the presentation being so close to the docket date. The rest of the year is pretty jammed with some big like street vendor ordinance and then legislative recesses. So when we saw an opening, we snatched it.
Oh, good for you. We appreciate that. Okay. Thank you again. And I'm sure we will see you again. And with that, we'll move on to our presentation from Border Angels, and I'd like to turn it over to Vice Chair Canizales to introduce our speaker. And bye, and thank you, Makana and Justine.
Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, hello, Dulce. I would like to thank Dulce Garcia for joining us today on little late notice. We're glad you're able to make it. Just want to tell you a little bit about Dulce. She grew up in Logan Heights, attended San Diego City College, worked evenings, weekends as a paralegal in a law office. She paid her way through school, transferred to UC San Diego, where she received her bachelor's degree in political science, and she attended law school at Cleveland Marshall College of Law, where she earned her JD with a concentration in civil litigation. And I heard Dulce now that I've been attending the SDIRC meetings, and just really was very impressed by all of the work that Border Angels and her organization is doing at the border. And the border and the issues at the detention centers have been really important to several of us commissioners who have been on the commission for over 5 years. And so I'm really pleased that she's able to join us today to just give us a brief update and maybe look to see how we can work together in the future. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dulce, and I believe she would like to share her screen, Gerald. So if you could help her with that, that would be fantastic.
Thank you again for the space, for the invitation and the introduction, and the patience in coordinating this talk. Border Angels provides direct humanitarian here in our border region with the attempt to reduce the amount of deaths. And we engage in direct action to defend the rights of migrants and refugees. And we like to say that our mission is very much based on love, but it's an active kind of love. Unfortunately, the policies that were created during the prior federal administration created a humanitarian crisis here at the border. And the purpose was very much to dehumanize our migrant community and to create policies that are so inhumane that it would deter people from asking for asylum. And these policies, unfortunately, still are in effect today, even with this new federal administration. We still receive accounts of families, in particular women, mothers that are deciding whether to send their children across the border unaccompanied because they're so desperate to keep their children safe. The deaths of people that are attempting to cross the border continue daily, and by Border Patrol accounts, they agree that maritime crossing attempts have also increased, and some have resulted in death. People are being pushed over to risk their lives because the border remains closed. There are still in effect today policies such as Title 42. Next month, Title 42 will be lifted for those that are able to travel for fun, to be able to use their travel visas to visit San Diego. But the border is still going to remain closed for those that are asking for a chance to survive. So asylum seekers are being currently rejected still today. So our programs are still very much a result of the need here in our region, in our San Diego region. Some of our programs include our water drop, in which a team of volunteers goes into the desert and into the mountains to drop water and supplies for the migrants that are making these very dangerous journeys across the border. In the winter, if you saw the news, the last winter, there were people that literally froze to death as they were attempting to cross through the mountains. And in the summer, people dehydrate and perish in our own desert here. Another program that we have is our shelter aid program, in which we support 17 migrant encampments and the encampment in Tijuana. So 17 shelters, all of them are supported by community members. None of them receive support from the US government or the Mexican government. These are folks that literally converted their garages, their churches, their homes, any space they could find to house asylum seekers. We support them with paying rent, water bills, electricity, repairs. Sometimes we even find vans or vehicles for them to be able to transport donations. When the pandemic started last year, it was easy for us to tell them, disinfect everything and have PPE available and have bacterial gels and masks. But for these spaces where there's no resources and receiving migrants daily, it was really difficult for them to maintain these spaces sanitary. There's one shelter in particular that continues to receive 100 migrants a day from the daily expulsions. The US government at the moment is still investing in getting people apprehended somewhere, say in Texas or Arizona or in another part of the border, and then spending money and resources to fly them here to San Diego and then expelling them to Tijuana, to these shelters where the government's not going to take care of people, where sometimes they're even testing positive for COVID and putting them in these community shelters, exposing everyone else. This has been ongoing for the entire pandemic and still ongoing today, even with this new administration that promised during the prior campaign to restore asylum protections. They haven't restored the asylum process yet. The photograph that is my background here is from the encampment in Tijuana, right at the San Isidro Port of Entry, Ped West. It's called El Chaparral, this area. There's about 2,500 to 3,000 people living in tents, over 600 children living in tents in the streets without access to medical care, without access to potable water. It's really heartbreaking to see that this is happening just a few miles south of us. And if it's okay, Gerald, I'll go ahead and share my screen, see if I get this right. Hopefully you don't see all of the other screenshots here, but I'll see if I can share screen here so you can get a better idea of what it is that I'm talking about. So this is thank you. This is some photos that were taken just a couple of weeks ago. So imagine you're a child without access to even school, and you are in this space since February for months and months and months without knowing where your next meal is coming from, without a work permit. Imagine if you're a Black migrant facing even more dangerous, or a mother with 3 children in the little tent, and sometimes when space runs out, having to share a tent with another family. This is happening just a few miles from where we sit today. This is ongoing and has been ongoing since February, when Biden announced that it would end MPP. Still today, the MPP program is in place, and the Biden administration is looking to restart it all over again, rejecting migrants and telling them to wait in Mexico, where the circumstances there are just very dangerous for children.
Dulce, can you, I know I'm familiar, and some of us, with MPP, which stands for Migrant Protection Protocols, but for folks who might not be familiar with that term, do you mind explaining a little bit more?
Yeah, so basically when a migrant shows at the port of entry in San Isidro and says, I want to ask for protection, my own government is the reason why I suffered violence. You know, it was violence from my own government for a political reason, right? They're being rejected. They're being told that they have to wait in Mexico for a court hearing. And since the implementation of the MPP program, the Remain in Mexico program, what we have heard has been testimonies of the most egregious human rights violations, families that tell us that while they were waiting for their court hearing, they were kidnapped, they were tortured in Mexico. Some women that we spoke to in this encampment had told us that they had been victims of rape, and some of the children that were in those spaces were as a result of those violence attacks. So the MPP program is still in effect. The Biden administration issued a memo that is currently being litigated. And Title 42, the border closing due to the pandemic, is still in effect. So when people show up at the border, Title 42 gives the US government an excuse to tell them, hey, there's a pandemic ongoing, we got to protect Americans, you can't come into the US to ask for asylum. There was a very small, brief period of time due to the great efforts of the ACLU in their Huisha litigation, a case challenging Title 42. And part of that settlement in that case allowed us to bring in some people, 35 families a day across the border. We organized and we filed applications for over 1,000 people. And so we were able to bring families across from the shelter and from this space. But then that window of opportunity closed August. And after August 31st, there hasn't been another mechanism in place for us to be able to file for these folks so they can come across the US and make their claim to asylum. When migrants are processed through as an exemption, say to Title 42, as some Brazilians have been able to cross, they have been put in detention. So even when they make it across the border, they get put in an immigration detention center. And we have one here at the Altai Mesa Detention Center. It was the first immigration detention center that saw the first COVID-19 related death right here in our own backyard. And at any given time, there's been over 23,000 people incarcerated for immigration violation or because they're asking for asylum. We have our bond program. We have posted 97 bonds since last year, and all of them have been for asylum seekers. These are folks that have gone through the worst of traumas. Some traveled 13 different countries. Some by miracle escaped in Cameroon. We had a woman that saw her child be killed in front of her, her husband. By miracle, she made it across various countries to make it to our border. And then we put her in a detention center. And then the ICE officer is in charge of assigning a bond amount, an amount that a migrant has to pay in order to be released from detention centers. And the most common bond we see is $5,000 and $7,500, but it's very common to also receive requests for $10,000, $20,000. We weren't even shocked when we received the one for $60,000 because these are placed arbitrarily. There isn't like a schedule or there isn't a way for us to even anticipate what the thousands of dollars are going to be requested. It's really arbitrary and is really by the immigration, the ICE officer that determines how much a person needs to pay to get out of the detention center. All of asylum seekers go through an extreme vetting process. So we know that they're not going to be a problem for public safety, for example. And the overwhelming majority, over 90, I think 95, 97 was the last figure I saw, 97% of people show up to the court hearings. So there's no risk that they're not going to be showing up. All of the people that are in this space want to, quote unquote, do things the right way. They want to apply. They want to present themselves at the port of entry. They want a process for them to be able to make these asylum claims. So no one wants to risk their lives and go through the desert. But the reality is, since all of the doors are closed to them, either because of MPP or Title 42, what we see is people being pushed and forced to cross through the rivers. And so that's why we get these images like we saw a few weeks ago from the Rio in Texas. Some of the people that we actually had staying in our shelters heard that there was a couple of migrants that were able to cross through the Rio, through Ciudad Acuña. So they migrated and tried to try their luck that way. And so these incidences are going to continue so long as the border remains closed in this very inhumane way where we're telling people, well, you made the journey, you made it all the way to our borders, but the doors are closed to you. When we know that there are ways to process people safely, there are organizations that are willing to vaccinate, to test. There are people that are willing to receive them and welcome them in a dignified and humane way. So it's really heartbreaking because we really, as organizations that do this work, don't see any valid justification for keeping the doors closed to asylum seekers. I could go all day, but I know you.
I know, and I would say, I think we could say, I think, we are so grateful for your presentation and for sharing your work with us and the experiences of people waiting desperately after experiencing really unimaginable trauma. I know I met many asylum seekers who prior to MPP had come across and were at the shelter operated by Jewish Family Service and the Rapid Response Network. And these are people who are so desperate, who have risked their lives, to get, to your point, so close, only to be turned back. And so I think we all applaud the work you're doing. And I guess my question, and then I'll open it up just briefly to other questions, is there anything we can do in our role as a city commission, recognizing that so many of these issues are federal issues? Is there support that you're looking for your organization that we can help with?
There are a lot of things that we can do locally to protect our migrant community. One of them is to disentangle collaboration with ICE and Border Patrol. I know the data sharing is a very controversial conversation right now, but it needs to happen. We need to disentangle ourselves from a federal agency that is in charge of enforcing immigration rules or policies, whatever they may be at that time. But as a local community, we have a lot to say when we say we are a welcoming city. Are we really living to that value by disentangling all collaboration, whether it's in the form of data sharing, ICE transfers, giving a clear message to local law enforcement and sheriff that we will not be participating in some of these inhumane policies that end up separating our own families and community members. So that's one way to do it.
And I would say, if you can share with us maybe specifics and maybe coming back at another meeting, because one of the things that we'll often do is for specific policies that we care about and want to advocate for, we'll send a letter to the mayor's office on behalf of the commission asking for that policy change. So if you can come back to us with a specific request, that's something that we could certainly consider in the future. Are there any other questions for Dulce before we move on to our next item?
Yeah, Commissioner Tooties, hand up.
Commissioner Thomas?
Sorry, cancel that. That was from before. I never lowered it.
Oh, okay. Anybody
I was
else?
wondering why my hands was tired.
I believe Godwin, did you have a question?
Commissioner Higa?
I just heard in the beginning, you said something about they're restoring the law. What does that mean? Because I understood the asylum law as a federal law that's in place that anyone can seek asylum. And yet we're doing this, Biden is flip-flopping on the amount that people can come to the country and so forth. But what does it mean when you said restoring the law? Is it the original law? Is there a new law that needs to be restored? I was wondering what that was.
Yes, restoring the asylum process. It has been dismantled. The types of claims that can be made was dismantled by the prior president. And the fact that we are not allowing people to make even a claim, right? The doors are completely closed. There's no process for them. There's no system in place for them. That's what I mean. And it is you're absolutely right. It's contrary to our own domestic laws and our international treaties that we've signed on to protect asylum.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and great question.
Commissioner Destiwala.
So I'm looking at time, and I want to make sure we get to our next few items. Commissioner Detsky-Weil, would it be okay if you pose your question offline to Dulce via email, if we can get her email?
She's muted.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. And I would say, Dulce, again, thank you so much for joining us. And really thank you for all of the work you do on behalf of the thousands and thousands of people we know who are seeking asylum at our border. And again, if there's a specific request about something we can do within the city of San Diego, if you can work through our interim executive director, Gerald, we would love to have you back.
Yeah, or if you could contact me, we could be in touch. I know that Faye Detsky-Weil and myself were very involved in trying to do something in the past and schedule meetings with some folks with ICE, and we kind of hit brick walls. So it's something that's important to several of us. So I'll be in touch with you. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you again, Vice Chair Canizales, for inviting Dulce to join us. And with that, I will move on to our next item, which is Mayor's Office public comment. Or public official comment, and I'll turn it over to Gerald to share. And just a quick reminder to everyone, there were two items. So one is a follow-up on the term communities of concern, which we had heard from the mayor's office was no longer going to be used by the city, but it showed up again in the parks master plan that was presented to us last month. So we'll hear the status of that. And then also about the advanced child tax credit letter that we sent. Gerald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I can share is that we did speak with the Deputy Chief of Staff, Nick Serrano. He has already instructed the mayor's communication staff to not use the term communities of concern, but rather to use the underserved, under-resourced. He apologized for it going out, but there was those documents, especially when we talk about the park master plan, had already been written prior, and so he was unable to pull that back. And so again, as far as the mayor's office is concerned, and it hasn't been official yet, they're going to use the underserved and under-resourced communities. As it relates to the tax credit, Director Gordon spoke with Deputy Director of Communication about the tax care letter, which with regards to using the mayor's social media platform and his newsletter to promote the information. And we are yet waiting for approval from the mayor to do that. The mayor's office would also like to share with you that the official announcement for the appointee of the city's youth commission. And so that is, in fact, going forward. and he is behind that 1,000%. And so those are the things that we asked from the mayor's office, and those are the response.
Thank you, and really appreciate that follow-up. In terms of the communities of concern, you said it's not official, I think. Is there anything, so is that moving forward, the use of the alternative terms?
It is, in fact, moving forward. You will not see that going forward coming out of the mayor's office in any written document. Communities of concern, they will, in fact, be using underserved and under-resourced communities.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will just add around the Advanced Child Tax Credit, that Council Member Campillo's office did reach out to me separately, and they're interested in promoting that among their constituents who may not have taken advantage of that tax credit payment. So that was a good outcome as well. Our next item is an update on our Campaign to End Hate working group. And I'll turn it over to Vice Chair Canizales. I'm excited to see things moving forward. We had a great meeting today, and I think we're really building some momentum. Vice Chair Canizales.
Yes, thank you also to Commissioner Brown, who joined us for this meeting today, and Gerald for putting the meeting together. We met with Jonathan Gluss of the Arts and Cultural Department for the city, Christine Jones, and also Matthew Gordon. And I gave an overview of the LA versus Hate program, the way it started, and some of the elements and strategic goals of the plan in the County of Los Angeles, and really talked about focusing on what we could possibly do here in San Diego. And the portion that we all have talked about is really the public outreach and anti-hate campaign. And so I shared information with them today about this. And so some of the next steps we discussed is number one, to try to have a press conference, or to have a press conference, and to have some sort of proclamation during National United Against Hate Week, which is November 14th through the 20th. And it's also on your agenda. There's more information on your agenda about that particular week. We also talked about creating a logo. And so we did get interest from both Jonathan and Matthew to look into what resources might be available within the city to create a logo, which could be San Diego versus Hate, or we don't say no to hate, whatever we decide to move forward with. And I think the next step is to create a campaign that is manageable, and maybe kick something off at our dinner is what we talked about. And then making sure that we have the right people in the room. I think the other thing we talked about is really getting, if anything, to bring everyone who is doing something in this area together to share resources and to make sure we know who's doing what. And as I mentioned in the meeting, at the least to have a San Diego versus Hate on the website, the city website, and what resources are available. One of the things that was really important for the County of Los Angeles was reporting and making sure that hate crimes are reported, that action is taken. There's training involved for folks receiving complaints, but really making sure that victims of hate crimes feel like somebody's doing something about it. So that's pretty quickly what we discussed today. And so it was really good to have the meeting and to see this moving forward. So I'm glad to answer any questions. Oh, and yes, please add.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And I don't know, Gerald, if you had anything to add. I was just going to say, I think the big takeaway was that there was a lot of interest in supporting the week in November. And and then working over sort of the subsequent 6 months in advance of the new fiscal year to bring people together to build a coalition so that we can really launch a campaign in earnest, I think in fiscal year 21-22. But I think definitely no shortage of interest, both as Laura shared by the mayor's office and also from arts and culture. And that capacity is a little more limited right now. But Gerald, anything else you wanted to add?
Yes, ma'am. I also thought it was a dynamic meeting this morning, and after the meeting, Director Gordon, Matthew Gordon, gave me a call about an hour later. He spoke with Chida Warren Darby as it regards the press conference. And so tentatively, we have a press conference scheduled for November the 16th at 9 a.m. To deal with the United Against Hate, as well as the San Diego versus Hate. Again, that is a tentative date and time. And what he also told me is that the mayor will be in attendance for that press conference. Also, the logo, the mayor's community communication department has taken on, designing the logo, and they will have that for us next week.
Wow, that's great.
So, by having the right people in the room, we got the right response, and we are moving forward. I'm excited about the campaign and what the commission is doing. The part that came back to the commission was that the ask is that everyone would gather the different partnerships that the commission already has and make sure that they are there for the press conference. From the LGBTQ plus community, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League community, the Coalition for Justice community, or whatever other communities out there that will stand with us and partner with the Human Relations Commission for the city. They're looking for the commission to reach out to those different parties to bring them in.
Thank you. I think that's fantastic news. Really, really great. And I'm wondering, Gerald, if you can share with us once we have the details of the press conference so that we can all share it with our networks, with all the organizations that I am sure will want to participate. But I think it's really great to start with this week in November and then continue building from there. Commissioner Canizales?
Yeah, and can you just tell me the date and time again? I missed that.
November 16th.
I'm sorry, November what?
16th.
Okay, 16th.
9 a.m.
Perfect.
Okay, and I will continue with you. And I see Commissioner Duncan in the chat said big win for us, and I think absolutely. But I will have you continue speaking about the awards committee.
Yeah, so put my next agenda. So we had a meeting, and as I mentioned during our last meeting, and hopefully you're all getting the invitations, we're meeting on, I know some people were out of town. We are meeting once a month on Friday, and just see. So we did have a meeting, and again, thank you, Ricky Brown, for joining us at the meeting. We have, Gerald has updated with the help of the IT department, has updated the website. I finally got the press release to the communications office. So we had to change the dates for the nominations. So we are accepting nominations as of today, October 15th, and we'll accept nominations until December 1st. Ricky is looking into creating a menu and creating a budget. So we know, looking at the menu that is available through the library, and to create a budget so we could go after sponsors. We know have some people said how much money, so we're in the process of creating that budget. And I know that Gerald is reaching out to some sponsors. This is where we need help. I'm asking, number one, if there is someone on the commission that would like to volunteer to kind of head the selection subcommittee. That would mean getting a couple of other commissioners, looking at the applications, and then making recommendations at the December meeting of the Human Relations Commission. We also need a volunteer to help with sponsorship. If somebody would like to take that on, to reach out to sponsors and work with our executive director and making sure that we're in touch and getting information for sponsors to Gerald and myself. And then the other area that we need is if anybody has any graphic design background to create the actual program. I can do it on Publisher if nobody else can do it. But if somebody else has that expertise, or somebody within your organization could pull together a nice program, just a one-page fold-over program that would have, and we have samples of what we've done in the past. So those are 3 asks, and I'd like to find out from the commission if anybody would like to volunteer to help on any of those, in any of those 3 areas.
I can definitely assist with the leading the subcommittee for the selection of applications and awards. I'd love to participate there. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll send out an email, hopefully maybe soliciting some additional commissioners to join, and we can kind of take things from there.
That would be great. And I know we had a couple commissioners express interest in sponsorship. So yes, Gerald.
No, finish your thought, and I'll come back after you finish.
Oh yeah, and then if nobody else has any expertise in creative design, then I guess I'll do it. So, but if someone else could do it, that would be great. So,
does the city? I don't know, Gerald. Does the city have a graphic designer who might be able to spend just a couple minutes on it?
Yes, ma'am. They do.
Okay.
They do. And so. Tell me what you would like to have there, and we'll get it over to the graphics department. And so that's the whole thing. I just wanted to also come back and mention, Madam Vice Chair and Chair, that to Commissioner Duncan, that we have extended the date for the applications, and that's been extended to December the 1st for folks to submit the application in. We were going from October 15 to November 14. However, we found that time kind of tight, and so we wanted to give the opportunity for more folks to be able to get the information in. And so once the press release has been looked over by the city's press department, they're going to forward it back to Commissioner Canales and myself, and we will make sure that it gets out and on the desk of all the council members, the mayor, and other folks, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of it so that you all can send it out as well.
Vice Chair Canizales, can you, around on the sponsorship front, how much money are we looking for? So if someone is aware of a corporate sponsor or might want to individually support, what's the?
Yeah, so we're looking at the catering costs being about $2,500. The cost of the awards would be $300. The cost of the program is $150 to print and make copies. Actually, that would probably be a lot less depending on if it could be done internally. The awards, we're looking at maybe actually we have 3, but it might be 4. So those are the costs. It sounds like the cost of the AV and the use of the room are not going to be something that we have to worry about. That's going to be absorbed by the city.
Right.
So it sounds like $2,500 to $3,000 is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I would say if individually you'd like to make a gift to support or know of any businesses or organizations that would like to support. And I think we would certainly recognize any sponsors on, event collateral the night of if they wanted to make remarks. I think we could do all of those things.
Yeah,
Happy to help with sponsorship if we need that. I've done that in the past. And also, do we have a list of sponsors that we've had for past dinners? Because that'd be very helpful.
I don't have that list. I know, yeah, I don't have that list.
I think Danelle would know. There have not been very many. Like I would say maybe 3 organizations, but I think Danelle would know.
Yeah, I believed, I've looked at a lot of the information that was sent to me, and I didn't see anything as far as sponsorship. Maybe some of the folks who were on the commission before I was. No,
yeah, in the early years there were, and I can't.
I know that the year I chaired it, we had several commissioners that either raised money. I went out and bought, like forks and knives and that kind of thing. But several of the commissioners got donations. And so each commissioner got some sort of food. But I think we're trying to do something where just it's done by one person. So we will be looking for donations and sponsorship.
Thank you. So it sounds like, so for anybody.
Faye has a question.
Oh, thanks. I couldn't see that. Commissioner.
I'm just wondering, is there some kind of press release or something we could put out to say what we're doing and that donations would be appreciated? Is that?
I mean, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think typically what I've seen is a letter sent to prospective sponsors, with information about the event and what we're looking for, so that it's really targeted to people companies would be interested.
Yeah, and so if anybody who would like a template of a letter, I believe we have that, and so I think if Gerald, if you could send I think there's a letter that Danelle did send out. Could you please send that to the commissioner so each commissioner could write a letter and get that out to any of their contacts? I think that would be the best way to do it. And then we can include some sponsorship information in there because I think she's included that as well. So we'll get that out to everybody.
Thank you. And were there any other
I have a question. Is it possible to get a list of the organizations of the people that were awarded in previous dinners so that maybe we can send those organizations a letter because they're highly honored that night? I mean, I love the evening. And so if we can contact the people that were nominated and got an award to their organization, I think they might be able to give us some donations, possibly.
Would you like to do that, Godwin? Would you?
If you have the list, I could send a letter to them.
Gerald, do you want to?
And we do. I'll give you, for example, Cox Communication was awardee 1 year as well, and so you're right there in line, Commissioner, because we were going to go to Cox Communication as well, and so we definitely will compile that list of awardees and send them over to you.
Yeah, and I think it'd be best if, Gerald, if you then just handled that portion of it since you are reaching out to people, and that way we know who's contacting which person at Cox and all that. So that would be great.
Yeah, and I think if we mention in the letter that one of your employees was highly decorated by or received an award by Human Relations, so that it can remind them that this is not just asking for funding, but we're supporting the community service awards to all these different companies that are really into that. So
yeah, you know what, you bring up a really good point, Godwin. I think one of the things we probably need to do is, I don't know that we've added the 2017 recipients. So then that list would already be on the website. So that needs to be updated.
I think such a great idea, Commissioner Higa, right? We recognized you. We're so pleased to do that and hope you will support us. I think that's fantastic. Anything else, Vice Chair Canizales, on this item?
Don't think so. I can drop the minutes and timeline in the chat if anybody wants to read it. So let me know.
Thank you for all your work. Moving on to next item, which is our hate crimes and violent extremism report with Commissioner Gillies.
I am so sorry, Madam Chair, but I was out of town, out of the country for a death in the family and just returned, and I didn't have a chance to speak with the district attorney's office. So I apologize, and we'll bring you something next month.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think, and I'm trying to recall Gerald and Vice Chair Canizales, we talked about potentially adding the information to the website. So I'm hoping, that next month when you share, we can then add that report to our website so that it is available and accessible to the public. All right, so moving right along to our executive director's report. Gerald.
Commissioners, I want to report that we only had 3 complaints, discrimination complaints throughout the month, from last month when we met to now. And only one of the complaints we were able to forward on to the County of San Diego because the individual was dealing in the County of San Diego. The other 2 complaints were blank. And so we only really have 1 complaint within that last month. So I am getting with the webmaster to make sure that we are in fact getting all the complaints in so that I can in fact see them. We've had correspondence back and forth over the last several days. And so I wanted to report on that. I also want to share my screen with you. One of the concerns that we had, and I hope that I'm able to bring it up here, is, and let me go over here to, you may be able to see our event calendar. One of the things from last month that you asked was that we begin to put things on the event calendar. As you can see, the commission's meetings here, all we have to do now, all you have to do is submit those dates for the events that are coming up, and we will in fact get them into the calendar so that folks are able to see it at one time.
And where does that calendar show up?
That is on the HRC website for the city of San Diego.
Thank you for adding that. It's exciting. We're making progress.
Do we know how many people are actually looking at our website at all? Do we have a way of keeping a count?
I know that they do. Okay, so they should have a tickler on there that when someone takes a look at our website, that we are able to see. But if not, that's one of the things that we're going to ask. We're asking of them to put a tickler on there so that we can in fact track who's coming, how many people are actually viewing the website. In addition to what Commissioner Dusty Well, does that answer your question? So in addition to that, what the chair was just saying regarding our hate crimes and hate speech, the webmaster is simply waiting on us for contents. We have been in contact with Commissioner Gilly, and we understand and we offer our sincere condolences to her. So it's been difficult, but once we get some contents for that tab, they will in fact put the hate crime tab up there. I've also spoken with the FBI so that we can have a link to their hate crimes website as well. And we're going to make sure that we get one from the district attorney's office so that we can make sure there's one place. Additionally, we will talk with 211 so that 211 will be a part of that tab. So if anyone wants to file or connect or looking for resources, they will be able to go to the hate crimes tab. If they think they have a hate crime, to report it there so that we can in fact get that information and track that information as well.
Oh, that's great to hear. I do have to ask, so I heard we had 3 complaints this month. in terms of the backlog, have we made it through all of the old complaints that we didn't find out about that were sort of a year old?
We have approximately about 40 complaints that we're still going through. And so when I picked up the position, I started going through complaint, and following up on calling the numbers, and most of them were non-valid numbers or information. And so we are whittling down that list of complaints that we're
That's
given.
great to hear, and thank you for doing that. Any questions for Gerald on this item?
Commissioner Godwin.
Oh, I couldn't see that. Thank you.
Commissioner Tootie.
Oh, is that Commissioner Thomas?
Commissioner
Yes,
Thomas.
Tootie. So I have two questions related to this. One is there a way we can have those 40 odd complaints put on a spreadsheet like we had talked about, and what they involve with? We don't have to know the name of the person, but it could just be a number, and then how it was resolved or recommended to, whether it be the county or what the action was on it. And then we can watch that on a monthly basis to see that those 40 are being addressed.
The answer to that is yes, sir, we can. And
awesome.
And I'm going to think about having a spreadsheet available. If we're not going to put the names or anything on there, we can put what the incident is and refer that to make sure that everybody's able to see that.
And on the complaint, they leave a telephone number, and do they leave an email address also?
Some do. The ones I've seen have had telephone numbers, and maybe one or two had email addresses. I do also have street addresses on there as well. But we have tried both by email and also by phone to get a hold of folks.
Because 2020 was one heck of a year. And so I know a lot of people, lost their contacts, lost their place where they were living, lost all of those kinds of things. So if there's multiple ways of getting a hold of them, that would be. Now, this is kind of a quirky question, so bear with me, but I sort of think out of the box sometimes. Could a complaint be lodged on the SD Get It Done app?
Thank you for that question, because I sent that question over to Director Gordon last week.
Awesome.
I think that is a great idea. We were getting COVID responses when I was working as the COVID supervisor, and complaints. We were getting those via the Get It Done app. And so I think that they could, in fact, if they're able to be secure and come directly to our office, I think that we can, in fact, do that.
Thank you. You're doing amazing.
I think that's fantastic. And I would add, I think it's a brilliant idea. And maybe, Gerald, you could ask the mayor's office. That would be a great thing to announce on November 16th at the United Against Hate press conference, that now you can use the Get It Done app to file discrimination complaints. So maybe get them moving a little quicker.
That'll work. I like it. I like it. And
it's news.
They say great minds think alike. And so I don't know how great my mind is, but yours is great, because I sent that off last week.
Perfect. Well, I love it, and thank you. Anything else from you?
Commissioner Godwin?
Yeah, I had a question. There were 40 complaints in how many months? 7 months?
Since
before you came?
Before I came, all the way back to July of last year.
Yeah, so 40 complaints, and there's 1.4 million people in San Diego itself. So I'm wondering if people are not aware that they could contact the Human Relations Commission to get these statistics that Trudy is talking about. and listing the type of categories that we should be aware of. I'm just concerned that maybe the citizens of San Diego are not aware of how to make a complaint. It's just like the Asian hate crime statistics in California. They did not know how to report the crime and so forth. So I'm just wondering, with 40 or 40, 45, and maybe less than a year, but with 1.4 million people in San Diego, it just doesn't make sense to me that maybe there's a communication or a concern that people are just giving up on the city or giving up on the commission, that things are not happening the way it should be in investigations and trying to figure out what Tootie is mentioning, to kind of monitor it. Because I think this is a great part of our work as Human Relations Commission, to kind of monitor that. That's just my thoughts.
I think that's a good point. And the one thing, so I remember when Farhat was our interim staff person, I believe the total number of complaints, and Gerald, you'll have to confirm, I mean, it was many, many hundreds, if not over 1,000. And it sounds like what Gerald was saying is he's gone through all of them and we're now down to just 40, but I believe the number was much higher.
It was 1,900 emails that you had received, which was really crazy. And she had started to, prior to me coming on board, to eliminate them. And so I have boxes and boxes of files, but I went through and started calling folks and just striking folks out that were not, answering or returning emails or anything like that. And so we are still continuing, I am still continuing to do that. And so.
Yeah, and I think it's, Commissioner Higa, a point well taken around promoting that we actually can take these complaints and that people should submit them. And so I do think this press conference will be a great opportunity to highlight that. I know the mayor had a press conference earlier this week around hate crime. So I think that there is a lot more energy and interest in this, and we can continue working with the mayor's office to promote what we're doing. Yes, Gerald.
Commissioner Gilly had her hand up.
Oh, thank you. And can I ask anyone who's doing the hand raise? I can't see it. So if you can do speak in the chat, that would be really helpful. But Commissioner Gillies.
Sure. Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say to Commissioner Higa, that's really true, that it's a very small number, but we get dozens and dozens at the ADL, just like on a monthly basis, dozens and dozens of them. So I think people go to different sources, right? Like they go to their trusted faith leader, or they go to their consult, or they go, so it's sort of scattered around, but I do agree. I just love the idea of making sure that we promote that we are also a place for people to go, to the commission. So I think that's just a great idea.
Thank you.
May I add to that, Madam Chair? Is one of the things that Commissioner Gilly and I and others participated in was a PSA for against hate crimes. And we had the police chief, along with the attorney general, along with the district attorney, all to come and be a part of this. And we had folks from every walk of life that were part of this PSA. And so the commission may think about, as we talk about media and doing the press conference, because we'll have 2 press conferences actually, but we can think about what would a PSA look like that the commissioners could do. And then we could contact the media department. And I think that would be something that we can do and send out so people know that there is, in fact, a San Diego Human Relations Commission. And so I know that the Human Relations Commission for the county got a big, welcome aboard and all those things there. And so I think that it is time that the commission makes themselves known to the rest of San Diego.
Hear, hear. I couldn't agree more. And thank you again for your great work, Gerald. I really appreciate it. I'm going to do just a quick chair's report and then move into our commissioner reports. As an organization that works to foster mutual respect and understanding and celebrates really the beautiful diversity of our city, I want to recognize that Indigenous Peoples Day was last week. And I was really pleased to see the mayor, council members, and also San Diego Unified commemorating this day. And as you know, we were actively involved in the process to rename Sarah High School last spring. And on Indigenous Peoples Day, the new school name, which is Canyon Hills High School, Mat Quatup, was officially unveiled. So it was really exciting to see that and very much in alignment with the things that we care deeply about. I also noticed that the City of National City commemorated the day by raising a Kumeyaay flag. And my hope is that next year, our city will consider raising the Kumeyaay flag to commemorate Indigenous Peoples Day. And I'm hoping that the HRC will work with the mayor's office on this for next year. That is my report for today. And I'm going to move into commissioner reports. And I know Commissioner Rizzo has a report to us about some work she's been doing and feedback she'd like. So Commissioner Rizzo, if you'd like to go first.
Sure, thank you. So I wanted to follow up on the conversation about training that we've had a little bit in terms of training for commissioners respective to our duties to use mediation and conciliation in response to discrimination complaints. So I'm pleased to report that I've now had a follow-up conversation with the National Conflict Resolution Center and the president there. And I can let you know that NCRC can provide us with a training, a 3-hour training at no cost to the commission. They can do it in the time frame that I think makes sense to us, and we can talk about that at a later time, or I'll leave that up to the chair. And I can talk to you a little bit about what this training is and what it looks like. I can even provide some information either in the chat or at a later time to you all, but it's called the Exchange. It's a specific training that the NCRC National Conflict Resolution Center puts on for business leaders and for community leaders. And so we're going to be, if we like this idea and we want to move forward on it, it would be the Community Leader Exchange Program. So the Exchange is one of NCRC's conflict resolution conversation training programs. And just by way of background, the NCRC indicates that its training programs combine theory with experience to provide tools that you can apply every day. And they have years of working with businesses, healthcare organizations, schools, government agencies, and community groups. And they do work with other government agencies. I did get that information. The Exchange is a training specifically designed for leaders in community settings to assist with conflict resolution. The course explores dialogue, facilitation, understanding of conflict, identification of interest, and exploring discussions for possible solutions in a way that empowers participants to be fully engaged in problem solving. The NCRC states that the Exchange allows for an exchange of perspectives, exchange for ideas, and exchange of solutions. I have a copy of it's a rough sort of course outline, but I can put it on share screen if you'd like to sort of take a quick look at that. I've taken a version of the NCRC's Exchange program for leaders in the business setting. It's a little bit different than this community setting, but what I can say is that it was very beneficial. And I think that the Exchange will be beneficial for all of us as commissioners as we sort of think about our responsibilities under the municipal code to facilitate conversations in mediation or conciliation. And I tell you that because when I was reviewing the Exchange program, I wanted to ensure that because it's not a specific mediator training, but it's a conflict resolution training, that would be appropriate given our defined roles under the municipal code. So I have shared all of this with Shana and Dolores and Gerald, and I am rest assured that because of what the duties say in terms of mediation or conciliation discussions, and that they're specifically defined in terms of conciliation, which is that we would hold voluntary processes in which a neutral third party serves as an intermediary between the conflicting parties, and the parties may meet directly or not, or it may not meet directly, but with us facilitating dialogue, having conversations, working with individuals in conflict, helping them to have an exchange and coming up with their own solutions. I think for all of those reasons, the exchange makes sense. And I think it works really well. So they can facilitate that for us for up to 32 individuals. So I know Shana was indicating perhaps we'd invite city council members and perhaps their staff to join. And I think it'll be really helpful for us to learn from a professional company who does this type of conflict resolution training in this type of program that's really specifically geared for us to, effectively serve as intermediaries between conflicting parties, to allow us to sort of learn about perspectives, ideas, and solutions for this type of working that we've been talking about. So, like I said, I can share it if you want, or if that's enough for you, then great.
I think that was great, and really appreciate you, really being thoughtful about what it is we need as the Human Relations Commission based on our role. And this sounds really perfect based on the description you sent to me prior to the meeting. And I see multiple commissioners agreeing in the chat. And I think, what I had suggested is that we can aim to hold this in February. So knowing that we're really focused on this awards dinner in January, but in February to host this, as you heard, we can have, I believe, up to 32 people. So hopefully all commissioners can participate, but again, that we can invite council members and or staff in the mayor's office. Commissioner Gillies.
Thank you. I just had a question because we've talked about some trainings before, and this is something that is open to the public because it
would be a public meeting. Yeah.
So it's a public meeting. So they're doing this training within a public meeting. Okay.
So, and I can address that too, because I did address it with NCRC, that everything we do as public. The reason for the cap at 32 is because there will be, or will be encouraged to have some interactive dialogue, which is very typical in any type of sort of facilitated conversation, conflict resolution training. So that's my understanding as to the cap.
Gotcha. Okay. I think these trainings are very challenging to do on Zoom, and especially, but perhaps we won't be on Zoom by then. So that would be awesome.
There you go. Well, thank you. And I'm looking at the time, so I know we've got just a couple minutes left, but any feedback for Commissioner Rizzo about this? I saw, encouragement, support, thumbs up.
Just email me if you want the curriculum. I'll be happy to send. I'm going to put the link to the NCRC in the chat. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll move on with commissioner reports, and I'll start with Vice Chair Canizales.
Okay, thank you. So I am going to be participating in our college and career fair momentarily, so I will have to leave the meeting. And you're welcome to join. If you go to POWA USD, you're welcome to join the College and Career Fair. But I did want to just say that, as you may be aware, my term and Shana's term will be up soon. And according to the bylaws, I'm the vice chair. I have to head the nomination committee. And so if anybody's interested in running for vice chair or chair, please feel free to let me know. Or if you just want to talk to me about the vice chair position, I'm happy to discuss it with you. And so I believe everybody has my contact information. Feel free to give me a call if you want to know a little bit more about what it entails. I think it's really important that we have, now that we've been here for a while, to get new commissioners moving up in the leadership role. So, and that's it for me.
Thank you. And just to make sure everyone's clear, right? So nominations will be due by next month, and we will vote on our.
Thank you very much. You will. Seconds and 8:30 is presented up. Okay, thank you.
Oh, is somebody trying to speak?
No, not that I know of.
Oh, okay. I heard something. Yeah. So just confirming that if you're interested, to reach out to Vice Chair Canizales before the next meeting, and we will again be calling for nominations then. And now I'll go through. Commissioner Beltran, do you have any reports? Commissioner Brown?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Commissioner Duncan?
Yes, hello, good evening, everyone. I did want to go ahead and report out that the Autism Society of San Diego hosted our 7th annual Beers for Cheers for Autism on October 10th. It was a great event hosted at Mike Hess Brewing in Imperial Beach. We raised nearly $10,000, and we want to give a special shout out to the Law Office of Lincoln, Gustafson and Circus for their support and their sponsorship. Again, one of the passions of mine is advocating for individuals with developmental disorders or delays, as well as the mental health community just in general. And I'm really excited about continuing that type of support with the Autism Society of San Diego, and hope to continue to have the commission's support as well.
Oh, thank you. And congratulations on a successful event. That's great. Commissioner Detsky-Weil.
Hi, just wanted to say that Medicare open enrollment is between now and December 7th. For anyone who is anticipating being on Medicare, who is on Medicare or disability and needs assistance, they can contact HICAP and they can look at that online. The other question I wanted to know is, I haven't heard anything about my stay on the commission. And I'm wondering, do we have people in the wings that we're waiting to come on the commission? Or Reverend Brown, have you heard anything?
I have not heard anything about your specific, being on the commission, nor have I heard of anyone new coming on beside from the Julie Legaspi, her coming on. So again, we're still trying to go through applications and take a look at folks. Usually choose about 3 different boards or commissions that they want to be on. And so we're screening through those right now.
Thank you.
And so you're going to be here until there's a replacement. So don't plan on leaving anytime soon.
I'm not going anywhere yet.
All right.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Yes.
Commissioner Gillies, anything to report?
Not this month, thank you.
Thank you. I know Commissioner Higa shared that he had nothing to report. Commissioner Razi Jafari?
No, nothing from me either.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yeah, 2 things. One, to piggyback on Shana's thoughts on our indigenous people. Our city seal doesn't have any representation either of indigenous people. So let's hope that we can move forward with that. That would be a great change to the city. Yep. And the second thing is, I have a 3-hour NCRC training tomorrow morning. So I will report back to you and let you know how I thought they did. But I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great.
Fantastic. And I love that idea about the seal. So I think we should add it to our priorities to have that addressed before next Indigenous Peoples Day. Commissioner, I guess that is everybody. Did I miss anybody? And my apologies if I did. Okay, well, with 2 minutes to spare, I would like to adjourn this meeting and really thank everybody for all of your feedback, all of your contributions. Really, really appreciate each of you, and also our guests that joined us tonight. Our next meeting, I don't have the date in front of me. Gerald, what day in November is our next meeting?
It is our third Wednesday of next month. And
November 16th.
Thank you. Teamwork. November 16th.
17th.
Oh, November 17th. Even better. Look forward to seeing everybody then. Have a very good night, everyone.
Looking at the wrong calendar. 2020, 2022. Bye.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Will I see you there, Tootie? Because I'm going to be at West Coast tomorrow mediating. Or are you online in your training? Oh, I can't hear
you. Awesome. It'll be online.
It'll be online. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Rizzo. Yeah.
Commissioner Rizzo.
Yeah. Hi.
Since the meeting is over, let me put a stop on pause here.